In a remote village in Indonesia, nestled deep within the shadowy folds of a dense forest, there lived an old man named Pak Wira. He was known as the village elder, a man of wisdom who understood the old ways and the dark secrets that lay hidden beneath the village's peaceful exterior.
Yeah.
One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon and the jungle came alive with the sounds of night creatures, Pak Wira was visited by a desperate young woman named Sari. She spoke in hushed tones, her voice trembling with fear.
Pak Wira, something terrible has happened. My brother, he has wronged the dead.
Pak Wira's eyes narrowed. He knew what this meant.
Yeah.
The villagers believed that disturbing the dead was a grave sin, one that could invoke the wrath of the spirits. And there was no spirit more feared than that of the Pocong, the restless soul of a person whose shroud had not been properly untied during burial.
Tell me what happened.
Sari explained that her brother, Eerie, had been working in the cemetery late at night, digging up graves in search of valuables buried with the deceased. He had become obsessed with wealth, blinded by greed, and had broken the sacred taboo. Now, strange things were happening at their home. They heard knocking on the walls, whispers in the dark, and the stench of decay that wouldn't leave. Pak Wira nodded grimly. He knew the spirit of the disturbed body was seeking revenge, bound in its shroud, unable to find peace.
You must perform a ritual to appease the spirit. But be warned, the Pocong does not forgive easily.
S2.
That night, Pak Wira accompanied Sari to her home. The air was thick with tension, and the village seemed eerily silent, as if the jungle itself held its breath. They entered the small, dimly lit house where Sari's family huddled together in fear. Pak Wira began the ritual, chanting ancient incantations as he burned incense and laid offerings before a small altar. The smell of burning herbs filled the room, mixing with the overpowering odor of death. But as the ritual progressed, something went horribly wrong. The candles flickered and were snuffed out by an unseen force. The air grew cold, and a low, guttural moan echoed through the room. Suddenly, the door to the house burst open with a force that shook the walls. There, standing in the doorway, was a figure wrapped tightly in a white shroud. The Pocong's face was barely visible, but its hollow eyes glowed with a malevolent light. It began to hop towards them, its movement slow but deliberate, each leap bringing it closer and closer. Sari screamed, and her family huddled together, paralyzed by fear. Pak Wira, clutching his prayer beads, stepped forward.
We seek your forgiveness. The living have wronged you, but we offer our deepest apologies. Please return to your rest.
The Pocong paused, its hollow eyes fixed on Pak Wira. For a moment, silence fell over the room, broken only by the sound of Sari's sobs. Then, without warning, the Pocong lunged forward, its shroud flapping like the wings of a bat. It knocked Pak Wira to the ground and hovered over him, its face inches from his. Pak Wira felt the cold grip of death tightening around his heart. But just as he thought the end had come, the Pocong stopped. It slowly turned and began to hop towards the door. As it reached the threshold, it looked back one last time, its gaze burning into the souls of those in the room. Then, with a final leap, it disappeared into the night. Pak Wira lay on the ground, gasping for breath. The room was deathly silent, the air heavy with the lingering presence of the Pocong. He knew that the spirit had been appeased, for now. But the curse would never truly be lifted. As the days passed, life in the village returned to normal, but the fear never left. The villagers knew that the Pocong was out there, waiting in the shadows, ready to return should the living ever disturb the dead again. And so, they lived in constant fear, haunted by the silent curse that would never let them go.